these holes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Then I add another 16 holes on the sides for a total of 20 holes for the whole cup. Then what you want to do is label your cuttings. I found it very helpful to soak the cuttings in water for 1 to 2 hours. Now for the soil, I used 60% Miracle Grow, 30% Perlite, and 10% sphagnum moss. I wet the soil, but not too much. Fill a cup, get a hole made. I used one of these Sharpie markers. Then what I did is I took some bleach and water, 7 parts water, 1 part bleach, and I just brushed the cutting so that I don't get any mold or anything developing on it. You got to be careful if you've soaked it in water. If the wood is soft, you don't want to damage it. Now you want to make sure that your cutting fits in the cup. You want to measure the height. Here what I did is I completely buried the cutting under the soil. I cut the bottom and then I scored it right underneath the next bud. So you find the bud right at the bottom and you just score the cutting. Then I dipped it into a diluted rooting hormone. So what I did is I put about half water and half rooting hormone. The reason I did that is some people say the rooting hormone makes the roots come really quick, but then they die really quick. So I didn't want to do that. Be careful with how wet you make your planting medium. This is the mistake that everybody always makes. They make it too wet, and what happens is the cutting rots, and then you wonder why you're not getting your cutting to propagate. So make sure that the soil isn't too wet. It's just damp enough to get the cutting to want to put out roots. And you don't need to keep watering it. Once you cover the cup, it should stay pretty moist enough to get the roots to come out. Then what I do is I cover it all in plastic. I find it helps to put an elastic right around the top of the plastic to prevent air from getting in at the top and having your soil dry out. I just use the saran wrap food plastic. You don't need to worry about breathing because it will breathe from the holes in the cup. Now I put it in another cup just to prevent light. They say that roots don't like the light, so I put it in another cup. And there's the growth starting to come out from the top. And what I do here is I just use a toothpick and I just make a small hole directly on top so that as it grows, I can make the hole bigger and bigger and allow it to grow out of the plastic. And that's how I propagate my figs. Now, I didn't have 100% success rate. I would say maybe around 80%. I did have about 2 or 3 different varieties that refused to put out roots. I don't know why, but that's how I propagate figs.